Hello and welcome to Explore TBR, the channel dedicated to finding and exploring what remains of the historic Thailand-Burma Railway. In this video, we will be exploring the railway in the area known during the war as Kinsaiyok. Kinsaiyok Station was located at the 172 kilometer point on the railway, about 20 kilometers beyond Hellfire Pass and Hintok. Kinsaiyok was one of the 6 major stations along the 415 kilometer length of the railway, with sidings, fuel and water facilities for the locomotives, and turning triangles to turn locomotives around. Looking at Google Maps, you'll need to drive from Kanchanaburi around 95 kilometers up Highway 323 to this junction here, which is the turnoff to Sayok Yai National Park. There is a small village here now, with restaurants and a 7-Eleven where you can get water and snacks if you need. Turn down this road to the National Park Gate. Just beyond the park gate here, you will pass through the former Kinsaiyok Station area, where the railway crosses the road. Then proceed into the park, turn left at the roundabout and down to the park headquarters building here. This area was also the site of the former Kinsaiyok POW camp. From this point there are trails up to the railway and you can explore in either direction. Some of the trails may be closed at certain times, so better check with the park rangers before you set off. It might be helpful at this point to show a big picture view of the section of the railway which we'll be looking at in this video. This is the park entrance road crossing through the Kinsaiyok station area here. A couple of kilometers south there were siding tracks splitting off to the west down to the POW camp in the river, and to the east to a spur and turning triangle. Further south are the remains of a few large timber bridges, the enormous Kinsaiyok embankment, and 2 more spur tracks at the south end near Sayok Station. Going back to the railway station area, this is what it looked like during the war. You can see this station was no simple hut beside the line, but a vast complex of warehouses, stores, workshops, and sidings. You can see the prominent bypass siding to the east, as well as the sidings and spurs at the station itself. The Warmanhoven report mentions how many of the major stations had water pumps, powered by small petrol engines. These pumped water from a nearby source, usually the river, into a high water tower. From there it would flow by gravity to the filling pipe located beside the tracks. Here at Kinsaiyok, the pump was mounted to 4 concrete foundations located at the riverbank here. The 4 foundations are still visible today. The water filling pipe was located beside the main line here, and I think the water tower itself was probably this round object here, but I'm not sure. This road is approximately where the park entrance road is today, and it went down to the POW camp 2 kilometers to the southwest. North of the station, you can clearly see Bridge Q549 and a large Japanese camp just beyond. Let's have a look at what remains along this stretch of the railway, starting from the north end. I should mention that the land to the north of the park entrance road is all private and you need to get permission to explore there. The Japanese camp is now a plantation, and I haven't yet gone beyond the 105-foot-long bridge Q549. The concrete foundations for that bridge still exist, shown in photo 1 looking north up towards the top of the embankment. You can see the holes in the concrete where timbers were used to tie the foundations together as they stepped down the hill into the creek. The GPS coordinates where all the photos were taken are marked on each of the photos. Photo 2 shows one of the 4 concrete bases which anchored the station's water pump. Near the main line, photo 3 shows the base of the water filling pipe. During the war, the pipe itself would have looked much like this one, located in the sidings back in Kanchanaburi. You can find many old 50-kilo sacks of cement scattered around the station area. They got wet and hardened and were left where they sat. The canvas sack has long since rotted away, leaving just the impression of the cloth in the cement. A pile of these sacks is shown in photo 4, located just south of the water pipe. During construction of the railway, cement was transferred from these very heavy sacks into smaller ones for easier transport up and down the railway to the bridge sites. We'll come back to this in a minute. Photo 5 is taken from the park entrance road and looks down the former main line. Some replica sleepers have been placed to mark the line, and in the distance to the right you can see a fenced-in area. This was the coal dump where coal was piled. Photo 6 shows the coal dump with the leftover coal as it sits today. The coal was probably from mines in Burma and only used in the sections of the railway with very steep grades, because coal contains more energy than wood. One such section was the big hill between Whampoa and Kinsaiyok. Reconnaissance reports also mention wood fuel stacked along the line at Kinsaiyok Station. Northbound trains used wood for the relatively flat run as far as Nikkei, and southbound trains used coal to climb the big hill over Tampi towards Whampoa. This section of the Japanese elevation diagram of the railway shows the elevation of the railway between Whampoa and Kinsaiyok. From Whampoa beside the river at around 50 meters elevation, the railway begins a steep climb through Tarso and up to the top of the hill at 267 meters elevation, just beyond Tampi Station. From there it is a very steep downhill grade through Hellfire Pass and Hintok, back down to river level at Kinsaiyok. The grades in this section were up to 2.5%, very steep by railway standards. Continuing down the railway from Sayok Station and over the short bridge Q550 over a stream, we come to points where sidings branch off to the east and west of the main line. At the points where the line splits off to the east, you can find a pair of bomb craters. The railway was extensively bombed along its entire length on April 24, 1945, and Q549 and Q553 were hit in that attack. Perhaps one bomber also tried to hit these points to disable the turning triangle. The bomb craters are about 20 meters apart, a few meters west of the railway ballast. I'll come back to the sidings on the east in a moment. A bit farther south, the siding on the west side diverges from the main line and curves down to the POW camp area, located here, splitting into 3 sidings along the way. There are around half a dozen camp sketches of Kinsaiyok, and 2 of them are shown here. They both show the railway line and sidings branching down to the camp. The main work camp was located here, with the British cemetery in this corner of the camp and the Dutch cemetery just across the railway siding. As desperately sick POWs returned from the awful camps farther north, a hospital camp was extended across the road here. This camp sketch shows a stream at the far end of the hospital camp, and the POWs had no knowledge of what was across this stream. They were probably forbidden to cross it. Beyond this stream there was a small Japanese camp, probably to house the POW camp guards. The remains of the cooking stoves for this camp can still be found, shown in photo 9. I think they have been rebuilt recently because when I first saw them about 20 years ago they were not nearly so neat and tidy. However, the location seems to be accurate because Renichi Sugano mentions finding them when he returned to the railway in 1975, and shows a photo where they look very similar to this. Back to the camp sketch maps, this road did not actually run parallel to the railway sidings. It actually angled to the north, and this stream is the stream under bridge Q551 here. The road crossed the railway line just south of Q551, and then split with one way going to the cholera camp and one going northwards crossing the stream. Again, it looks like the POWs were forbidden to cross the stream and had no knowledge of what was on the other side. The stream separated the camp from the railway sidings and turning triangle beyond. The cholera camp and cemetery were located around here. Photo 7 shows a pair of unloading ramps on the spur track. These ramps were built up like a railway platform on either side of the track so goods could be unloaded easily from the wagons. The walls have long since collapsed and the ramps are now just long low mounds beside the line. There are also ramps like these on the spur to the north about 50 meters away. A little further down the railway we cross a short bridge Q552 over another stream, and then the first cutting begins, about 3 meters deep and 220 meters long. After this cutting, the ground drops away and the railway is built up on embankments approaching either end of bridge Q553, a huge 315-foot bridge over low ground. This photo from the UK National Archives shows a recon flight assessing bomb damage from the April 24th raid, and shows a bomb hit on the north end of Q553. The size of Q553 is evident, as well as the earthworks building up the approach embankments. In the distance, you can also see the south end of the hospital camp. At the end of Q553, the railway passes through a short cutting and then the 40-foot-long bridge Q554 over a stream. These are both obscured by trees in the recon photo here. Just south of Q554, there are some replica sleepers shown in photo 10, which have been laid to mark the line of the railway. The railway then runs over an embankment, through a 120-meter-long shallow rock cutting, and then emerges at the approach embankment for the short bridge Q555. From this point, the railway is built on a high embankment for the next kilometre. Around 250 metres along the embankment, we come to the site of the very high bridge Q556, 250 feet long over a stream and marsh. Photo 11 shows the rock and concrete works of the bridge foundations looking north up the embankment. I mentioned earlier about cement being transferred at the station area from the large and heavy 50-kilo sacks into smaller bags for easier carrying to the work sites along the railway. At the south end of Q556, you can find a pair of these smaller sacks, around 15 kilos, which got wet and hardened and were left here at the foot of the bridge. Photo 12 shows what remains of these two sacks. Only a few feet away, you can also see how the bridge support timbers were concreted in place. The timbers have long since decayed away, leaving just the hold in the concrete form, shown in photo 13. The embankment continues for another 750 meters in a long curve to the southeast. In places, it appears to reach 15 meters in height, although I'm not very good at estimating these things. There is some footage at the end of this video which shows the embankment, and you can see for yourself. The embankment is shown in photo 14, looking north back towards Kinsaiyok Station. To build this, the POWs had to scrape earth from the surrounding rocky ground into baskets, scramble up the rising embankment and dump the load into place on top, and go back down. Thousands of times. I tried just going down the embankment and coming back up, and it was difficult without even carrying a load of earth. It's hard to imagine doing it under the conditions the POWs had to endure, suffering a variety of tropical diseases, starving and thirsty, and in many cases without even shoes. After a long kilometre, the embankment comes to an end, and the railway starts into another long and high rock cutting, around 300 metres long, shown in photo 15. In terms of length and depth, this cutting is similar to compressor cutting back at Hintok. Immediately south of the cutting, there is a short spur track on the west side of the line. This was likely another siding added late in the war to hide trains or wagons in the jungle where they were safer from air raids. There is no mention of this spur in either the Japanese railway plans or the Warmanhoven report. Just beyond the spur there are two short bridges over streams, Q557 and another which was missed in the DIR, and then another shallow rock cutting, the last along this stretch of the railway. About 300 meters farther along, we come to the site of Kinsaiyok Station at the 167.66 kilometer mark. A spur track extends 250 meters north from the station on the east side, but the ballast has been ploughed under this field, except for a short area at the dirt road along this tree line. This road here beyond the T-junction was actually built directly on top of the railway. For many years it was a dirt road, and the railway ballast was clearly visible running down the center of the road. In photo 16, taken more recently and facing the T-junction, you can still just see the larger railway ballast stones in the center of the road, but they are much less prominent. It used to be a very distinct strip of railway ballast about 6 feet wide, running down the center of the dirt road as far as the eye could see to the southeast towards Kanyu. But now the road has been paved and there is no sign of the railway underneath. So how can you get here to explore this area? I no longer recommend using bus 8203 to get here. The national park is very far from the highway, and the buses are not as frequent or reliable as they used to be. The easiest way is to either rent a car or motorbike and drive yourself, or else hire a car and driver, or even use Grab to find a ride up from Kanchanaburi into the national park. The entry fee to the national park is currently 300 baht per person. I suggest you explore the station area either first on the way in or last on the way out of the park. From the park headquarters, there are trails to bridge Q554 and Q556, and you can explore in either direction from there. This is a long and possibly difficult hike, and you may want to consider breaking it into 2 days. There are many resorts and hotels along the highway in this area. Conditions on the trail vary greatly. In the wet season, the trail will be muddy and very overgrown in many places, and you will need to cross creeks. In the dry season, the trail will be dry, but still possibly very overgrown in places, so plan for the worst and wear heavy clothes. You can detour around the worst of the thorn bushes, but you will inevitably be scratched and clawed by some of them. It's well worth it though. This is one of the most interesting sections of the railway. As always, please be very careful when you are hiking. Because this is a long hike, take it easy and pace yourself. There are a few places where falls are possible down steep banks. Know your limits and don't take risks. Bring a buddy, or if you're alone, let someone know exactly where you're going and when you expect to return. Like I've said many times before, this railway is a site of historic importance. Please don't take anything, and please don't leave any litter behind. Remember the thousands of people who died under appalling conditions constructing this railway, and treat what remains of it with the respect it deserves. Thank you. So that's it. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting or informative. If so, please give the video a like and feel free to subscribe and check out the other videos on different sections of the railway. And if you do get out here to Kinsaiyok and explore, let me know how it went in the comments below. I'd really like to hear from you. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.